Welcome to Friction Points, a focused 30-minute conversation in true Mitchell Stankovic and Associates style. This is where the underground, credit union shared services, and our strategic consulting come together to showcase how innovation becomes real for credit unions, no matter the size. My name is Buell Collins. I'll be your host today. Stick around after the subject here, and we'll do a brief Q&A with our panel experts here. One of the things we want to talk about today is maybe the rumor mill around the water cooler, something that you're hearing in the headlines a lot, saying cards are dying and that digital payments are taking over. Is that true? The data tells us something different. Cards still account for more than 80% of all non-cash transactions in the United States, and digital wallets run on card rails. Cards are not disappearing. It's a digital metamorphosis. The friction is not obsolescence, it's complexity. And credit unions that step back from card strategy right now feel it. To talk about this, I have a great panel with me today. I have Mr. Steve Bone, CEO of Member Access Processing, and Char Sears, Chief Growth Officer, easy for you to say, over at Unitus. And our moderator, as always, is Mr. Zach Christensen. Please welcome them and thank you all for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Buell. Appreciate you bringing us on, and I'm going to make sure that we have got the spotlights on our wonderful speakers, thought leaders here with us today. But Buell kind of set us up here a little bit, and if we could have people mute. Got it. All right. There is a little bit of risk here right now because credit unions are saying, at least some that we are hearing, and Steve and Char are going to give us a little bit more insight, that there is kind of this myth that cards are going away, right? But they shouldn't really be thinking that way because maybe the physicality of the cards is, although I wouldn't know what to do without mine because I am not quite trained on using a digital wallet yet. But fraud losses exceed over $12.5 billion last year. Dispute volumes are rising. Members expect instant issuance, digital provisioning, real-time controls. The complexity is getting faster, but it's not shrinking. And so, Steve, I know you're going to bring to us, all the good things that are happening with cards, digital wallets, all of that. And then, Char, you are not only a client and QSO owner of MAP. Is that correct? I just said that. I knew that was right. But you can tell us the story from the credit union perspective. So I want to start with Steve discussing this. And so, Steve, what are you seeing drive the narrative that cards are going away? And how does that compare to what the data shows when it comes to card usage, digital wallets, trends, all that good stuff?
Yeah, no, thanks, Zach. I think one of the challenges is the word card, using that as the panacea for payments and money movement, right? It's easy. We used to say Xerox instead of photocopy. Like if you look through history, we'd take some prevailing method of using a technology and that word became the be all end all for something. So when you think card, we all think of the plastic card, that little piece of PVC. It's got a chip in it. It's got a whole bunch of information on it. And that card is going to be used as a physical mode of payment and money movement less and less over time. There's no doubt about that. But what's behind the card, what Visa and MasterCard and American Express and Discover do with their rails to actually move money, those aren't going away at all. And rather than new digital forms of money movement taking over completely, they will become new options that will gain traction. And like anything, you have an adoption curve. You have a lot of folks who are on the front end of that curve, and they will use these new methods of digital tokenized payments right away. And then you have a lot of folks in perhaps one of the larger demographics that will be much less willing to adopt or will adopt a little at a time over time. So looking at the data, we do this at our conference every year. The Federal Reserve produces a great report on overall money movement trends that they're seeing. Cash for the last 3 years has still been 15% of all payments. Credit card payments are increasing dramatically as people build wealth. They tend to use more credit than debit. Debit's sort of the steadfast 30% of payments is on debit. And then you're going to see a little bit of decline in ACH and other forms of money movement. But with respect to card, Card is really just the representative word for how we move money electronically over the rails. And if anything, we're seeing the usage increase, not decrease.
Yeah, I don't really foresee people, because even when I do use my digital wallet on my phone, it's still my card that I'm using. I know that it's my card. Although I don't know if you saw that TikTok, there was this gal that she's like, Apple Cash is really your money. It's not just cash that you earn by using an Apple phone. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But there was somebody out there who really thought it was just free that she was charging on a card. So,
Zach,
yeah,
just to
please.
kind of play off what Steve was saying, that the card is becoming less visible. It's embedded within the payment experiences that consumers use every day, and it made me think of an analogy similar to how people used to think about the internet. So in the early days, we thought about dial-up modems, AOL CDs, top computers, right? And today, no one says, I'm going to go use the internet. They're just streaming a movie, they're ordering groceries, or jumping on a Zoom call like we did today. So the internet didn't die, it didn't disappear. It just really became more of that infrastructure. It's embedded just into our everyday experiences.
Wow, that's a really good way to put it. Because you used to say that, like, I need to get on the internet, and then everybody off the phone, everybody.
Yeah,
If we have any younger people on the call here today,
the sound of the dial-up.
exactly. So Shar, from your vantage point, how are your members behaving? And you are up in the Portland area of Oregon. But what are you seeing with card usage and digital wallet adoption up there? And is there more expectation from them on what you're able to offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing this shift really from the plastic to mobile first experiences. So when you think of mobile first for a card rail, right, it's instant access. Waiting for a piece of plastic in the mail is becoming so much less acceptable because folks need to spend today. So that immediate card provisioning, real-time alerts, self-service, right? It's got to be on the time that works best for them,
Mhm.
all those self-service controls. Steve had mentioned the dispute resolution experience, just low friction, and really the ability to manage everything digitally. So, I think for the credit union, it really is changing how we think about payments. We're not competing to issue the plastic. We're competing to become that preferred payment relationship for our members. Your members are telling you they want all of these things, and maybe they're telling you without telling you because you can see the behavior in your transaction data trends. So we think about it at our credit union as like primary financial interaction. So every tap,
Mhm.
every wallet transaction, subscription payment, that's an interaction that's either going to strengthen or weaken the relationship because we have to look at it as like a holistic experience. And, as we look at our data, and MAP has helped us greatly with this, we have so much data at our fingertips as a credit union and as a card issuer. We are seeing growth in our digital wallets and tokenized payments year over year. So it was mentioned earlier, digital wallets account for, I think, over 35% of online purchases. Now it's well over 20% of even in-store purchases, across, global markets. We're seeing over 38% of our total card spend is now coming from digital wallets. And that's growing year over year, like 80%. So our members are
Mm.
accessing their cards differently. We've really been focused on education with our members and education campaigns and just encouraging them to give it a try, helping them credential. Zach, call me after to get that card in and give it a try. And there's improved security around not exposing your card number. So again, a lot of education. And it's not just about Apple Pay or Google Wallet or some of these different wallets tied to a device ecosystem. We're seeing the emergence of more wallet agnostic solutions. So they're not dependent on a specific operating system. So that is an important evolution because it expands the consumer choice. It also reinforces back to the credit union that we want to continue to educate and understand that these experiences are still built on top of card credentials and card rails.
Yeah. My my favorite thing is that I do have it at my fingertips. I love that I have Google as well, and I use Chrome. So my payments are set up there. So it doesn't matter where I'm at. And if I have forgotten my wallet in my car so many times, but then have it on my phone so I don't have to run out and go get it is always nice. Steve, I'm going to ask you kind of a mid-level question here that we didn't put on there, but I remember I went to the UK in 2020, right before the pandemic. But when I went over there, it blew my mind because everywhere was like, we don't touch your card. It's tap to pay. You know, they many of them didn't even have a swipe or it didn't accept it. And I was just like, oh my God, they're like light years ahead of us. So we caught up fairly quickly after that. But and they're like, no, you could use your phone. And I'm like, you could use your phone. I'm like, well, let me put that on there. It made it easier too. What are you seeing right now? Because I know the Visa's forum is happening, I think, as we speak. What are some of the things that are happening right now that are going to really impact what credit unions are doing if they're not thinking about it?
I think long term at the Visa Payments Forum, what they are announcing is we're 3 to 6 months away from the next series of adoption, which is your identity and your payment credential being very open and flexible to different modes of payment. And then it all comes down to fraud and fraud protection. If your identity sits in a particular digital credential and your payment method sits in a credential, how do we make sure that that is ultra safe? I think that's the next evolution of the form factor, and the method with which you can move money and make payments is going to go even further into that digital world. And as you mentioned, more and more will be physically touchless. It'll be near field, right? And or card not present for sure. It's all here. And then it becomes a matter of, depending on where you live in the world and your demographic and a number of other factors, where you are in the adoption curve. There are some folks like my two teenagers who literally don't ever take their plastic out of their house or their room because they can use their phone everywhere. Yesterday, I checked my in-laws into a hotel because they're in town for graduation, and the hotel begrudgingly said you have to put your card in, and their heads went down. Right, we're still making you put the card in. So I think the behavior is changing where it's almost that expectation, not just in the UK, but almost everywhere.
Yeah.
COVID sped this up, and now technology and especially AI, everyone's going to expect to be able to do things without having to physically interact. And they're going to expect that if you know who I am and you know how I pay, you should be able to know what I want to transact, and that money movement needs to be very seamless and needs to flow instantaneously. And then the tough part, my little cheesy thing that I always say to everyone, everybody as a human in their experience wants that payment experience to be fast and frictionless and flexible. But then how is it also fraud free without a false positive? Because the worst thing that can happen is it's me and I want to make that payment and I have my payment instrument and I'm presenting it and my payment's being blocked and it shouldn't be blocked.
Yeah.
So managing all of that complexity is where Visa, MasterCard, American Express, those of us that process payments and money movement, that's where we play a really vital role, is to manage that balance of fast, frictionless, flexible, but fraud-free, no false positives. And the technologies are going to evolve much more quickly, and the rails are going to have all these applications that are going to be much more intuitive. And then data and AI are going to allow for you to walk on up, and more people, facial recognition, second form of making sure we know who you are, we know how you like to pay, here's the amount to pay. All of that's going to evolve. And I think every credit union should be working with a processor and consultants and their brand on card, if they're a Visa shop or a MasterCard shop, be working with all of them and look at everybody's roadmaps and where they converge to see where things are going.
Mm.
You,
Yeah, Shark, did you have something?
you said AI, Steve, so
Yeah.
we're talking about AI. I was reading the McKinsey Global Payments Report, and it said that 20% of consumers would be comfortable having AI make purchases on their behalf. So I'm curious, like, has anyone done this yet? I have not, but it's on my list, knowing that how protected I am as a consumer, right? With that whole infrastructure and the fraud mitigation, this is how folks are going to be shopping more in the future, that it's agentic AI. It's going to know what I need because of my usage rate on my laundry detergent, and it's just going to buy it for me, right? I mean, this is this is the future, but you have to have that trust, that fraud prevention. It's just becoming more and more important.
The guardrails, right?
Yep.
I think those on the early end of the adoption curve, if they're given really strong guardrails to be able to set up, I want AI to go ahead and do this for me. Yeah, I see it taking off. I'm not ready yet, but I'd be willing to try once I know that
Yes, I'm willing to try.
when I can configure the guardrails, I'm ready to go with that.
Okay.
Well, I'm the perfect one to do it because I was just gonna say I'm like the worst consumer for credit union and the best consumer for somebody in fraud trying to do fraud because I will try anything, but I'd never follow up to see if it actually worked the way it was supposed to. Did it take out? I was at the airport and did one of those, just walk in, grab the stuff, and then as you're walking out, just, tap and go. Like you don't scan anything, you don't do anything. And I was like, oh, this is great. So I just did it, went, and then I'm like, a week later, I should probably have double checked to make sure that like I didn't get charged $30 for that bottle of soda. But so I'll try it for you. I'll let you know how it goes, and give you the feedback there. Um, Steve, I thank you for that update and kind of telling where credit unions need to be going right now. And so within the evolution here, um, let's talk about trust. That was what really kind of came up to me. So I've been having some conversations around trust, and trust is a big thing with credit unions, and members have in the past significantly used that as the reason that they stay with credit unions. But you just talked about all this complexity around what has to happen and the fraud. And then I just gave you the example of me saying I just touched and went and didn't even think about it. And the younger generation is very much the same. They're not thinking about all the back workings. So for you and then Char as well, how do we tell that story of trust, or is it one of those things that we hopefully don't have to tell until it happens, and then when something happens we are just quick about it? How does that play into effect from a member perspective?
I think in terms of trust, you have to, especially for including myself, the more mature generations, you have to relate how things have worked in the current state to how they're going to work in this target state, right? So, as an example, with you go and you pay for dinner on a debit or credit card and you write in $4 as the tip, and then all of a sudden your card gets charged for an additional $10 because the server wrote a one in front of the four, $14 tip instead of a $4 tip. You have recourse, right? And you understand what your next step is when you want to dispute that transaction. And there's regulation, and there's a processor, and there's a financial institution, all responsible and accountable for that recourse. I think I saw, Tyler, I saw your note about ChatGPT and the announcement with Visa. As we start to put these large learning model based AI tools in to do things for you, how do you as a person, how do you want to establish that trust to let those tools act on your behalf? And what happens to the recourse if that learning model, whichever one you choose or whichever one you're offered, if it doesn't do what you thought it was supposed to do? I think we're still early in the game in it. It's going to get figured out. It's going to be exciting when we all figure it out, and it's going to get figured out rapidly because it's here. And as Tyler mentioned, it's live, right? So we're all having to figure it out pretty quickly, but that trust transition into some of these tools that can act on your behalf, I think we're early days. I have to be honest, I don't know exactly how we configure it and how it works yet. We're going to learn though pretty fast.
Yeah, we are. Do it together. Char,
Yeah.
any thoughts? Have you put that into your like member journey on what the new conversation is?
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Steve is saying. The future battleground in payments, I think, is trust in relationships. The capabilities, many will have capabilities that we're talking about, but that really resonates with me because trust is one of our greatest strengths as a credit union. So when we look at the reality of payments being the most frequent interaction our members will have with us, whether they're tapping the phone, using the digital wallet, paying a subscription, what have you. All of these moments are opportunities to really reinforce that trust, that convenience, that member relationship. And I do think it's important for our members to understand how we are doing that. Let me tell you how I am earning that we are going to earn your trust. And education is important. Just being there, meeting our members where we're at, whether they've had agentic AI do their shopping list for them or not. I mean, everyone's in a different spot, and so it's just really like personalizing that message. And talking about different generations, Gen Z, yes, they're very digital forward. They also want to be known, and they want their financial institution to know and understand them and build a relationship. And so there's nuances here. Everyone's in a different spot, but I do think that that trust in relationships is really paramount.
Yeah, well, and the AI piece is really interesting. Also, there was another announcement where they were going to not only let it purchase things for you, but ChatGPT really dig into your finances so it could give you education and counseling and all of those things. And I go, oh, I'm worried about the influencers that are trying to do it right on TikTok, let alone having ChatGPT get in there and be a certified counselor for our members as well. So, then we have to look at like the AI, EO. So where if chat's looking for something, it's pulling from a credit union and not somewhere else to give them information and advice. Well, I think let's move into like, what is the one big step you're taking, Char, right now to be ready for the future and ensure that your members are taken care of from fraud, that you're maintaining that trust, all of those things?
Yes. So we're really looking at it multifaceted. So you talked about member journeys. It's so important to map those out, put yourself in the member's shoes, talk to our members, do focus groups, and just really understand like where is the friction today and what are your desires and where are we maybe having a gap with how we're serving today. So I have an example. We over the last year, we've really been doubling down to build a plan to offer an international remittance product where members can now move money cross border. So this was a really strategic initiative that played upon real member feedback, opportunity sizing, and just understanding the needs deeply before we moved ahead to invest in building a new digitally embedded remittance experience. So, and we're leveraging Visa Direct. And I call Visa Direct out because it's such a great example of the evolution where it started by leveraging Visa's card network, but today can route money to cards, bank accounts, digital wallets, ACH networks, real time, all of that. So just partnering with a partner that really has that future forward and is continuing to evolve and support consumer needs and demands is really important. So now we're able to have this great experience for our members that's saving them time, saving them money under a brand, Unitus, that they trust. So going back to that, but it's really important to look at your vendor partners and make sure that they will not hinder where you're trying to go as a credit union and that you're locked into something that is not future proofed, if you will. So I think those two elements are really important to walk through those member journeys, walk through your fraud and dispute process. If you haven't gone through it yourself recently, walk through that. What happens? How many touch points? How many clicks? How many phone calls? How many times is the member repeating themselves? All of these little things add up to create that larger perception of your brand and the value that your credit union is giving back to me as the member. And making sure that you look at your partner ecosystem and that they can support you along the way.
Beautiful. And Steve, I'm going to ask the same question of you. However, before you answer that, and maybe this was going to be part of it, I'm glad you brought up embedded, Char, because I hear a lot of conversation about it. However, what I would like to know, I know what it means from a consumer perspective very, very well. And I am self-proclaimed payments and cards and the back workings of all of that. Number one, just boggles my mind and muddles it. So I leave that to the experts. But how when it comes to embedded finance, like I know which card I'm always going to use, but what does that look like for credit unions, kind of? And then I know that you also have other really great partnerships out there, like with Thread and other things. So I just want to make sure that there's kind of a wrap up with you on just anything that's really happening with MAP, for you to really make sure that the industry is ready as well.
Appreciate that. We've led with our biggest investments over the last 2 years in data and fraud, right? At the end of the day, all of the new technology that are the enablers, the fast, frictionless, flexible side of the payment, those are honestly the easy part. There's lots of great technology companies that are solving problems on how to move money in much more intuitive and useful and flexible ways. We're fortunate that especially with our relationship with Visa, they're spending billions and billions of dollars on the fraud side to make sure that it's safe to use all of these new methods. And so we've put quite a bit of investment in, from a fraud perspective, as one example, Visa has acquired a company called FeatureSpace. What FeatureSpace does is there's lots of AI tooling and data that try to identify bad behavior when someone's got your card and using it and they shouldn't be. FeatureSpace was a company that came along and built all the models that help identify a person's good behavior. We know that this is the right person doing the right things the right way. And when you couple that good behavior model with the ability to identify bad patterns, you have less false positives, you have a much better experience. So we've spent a lot of time focusing on that end because we know that the partners are going to come to us with all of the fun stuff, all of the enabling stuff. And that's paying off. And then from a data perspective, if you're knowing that you're supposed to be saying the word AI and talking about AI and saying that you're going to use AI, all of your journey with anything AI starts with data. And so we've been fortunate with Visa that Visa Data Manager, which is the enormous data warehouse with all of the data from every payment that we process, all of that data is a huge, big black box to a lot of organizations. We've been able to engineer it down into a very usable box of data and then avail that data for analytics, with the next stage being, now that we have this box of usable data, you can partner with the right AI companies to now consume and use that data in much quicker, much more usable, much more affordable ways. So those are our big investments right now. And then in terms of money movement, we have some things we're going to be announcing that I feel like my answer is going a bit long here, but we also know that, you've got to be able to offer Zelle and FedNow and RTP and all those things. And we're working with the right partner, where we're going to announce it very shortly, that we can help bring all of those abilities to a credit union as well through partnership. So we want to be fast and flexible and frictionless, but you can't do any of it if you're not fraud free and eliminating false positives.
I love it. I know Buell's coming on to close this out. I have one random question. Hopefully it could just be very simple, but do consumers care if it's MasterCard or Visa?
Char's gonna have a better answer than me.
I don't know. Whoever might have that, because for me, it's like a debit card's a debit card, right? And I'm not talking like, whatever card's going to give you, the features back, because that's not necessarily that. Do they care if it's MasterCard or Visa?
I would say no. I would say they care about how fast it is. Am I protected? It kind of goes back to the same theme, right?
It was a random question. I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, Buell, I'll quit now. I'll leave it alone.
No worries, no worries. Thank you, guys, and thank you to all our guests that joined us today. I was listening there, and I really like how you said that being the preferred payment relationship, right? Like, how do we get the opportunity to be top of mind with the member by doing these things that keep us, looking to the future and making the ease of use? I love that point. And looking at this as an opportunity to really stay top of mind with the member. Steve, when you talked about the pace of change and our ability to learn quickly, to meet and even surpass expectations. That was phenomenal, right? And I think that that really speaks to what you're doing over there at MAP. And that led right into Char's point about focusing on choosing vendors wisely, ones that aren't gonna, not be able to keep up and that are future proof, as she said. And that just rang so true to me because that was the primary focus when we were choosing cus partners like MAP. That ability to be forward thinking and to drive change and keep learning, as Steve said. So I loved all that. Our next episode is June 16th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So join us then. You can watch that conversation or rewatch this one at the Credit Union Shared Services Social Network Hub. The link is here in the chat, and you will see a QR code to join that. So join us there. We already had a couple questions from you, Zach. Visa, MasterCard, it doesn't matter to me. But are there any questions that you wanted to highlight for them, sir?
I could ask really, really silly questions, which I just put in there because there's a lot of still right now, a lot of vendors, places where you shop that don't offer the opportunity to use either debit or credit. Or like if you go to AM/PM, if you use a debit card, they're going to charge you 35 cents, right? If you go to Winco Foods, they don't take credit cards at all. And I know at a high level that that's because the charges they're getting on those transactions. Do you see this kind of, this everything that Stephen Char talks about things kind of evolving, where it gets to the point where the vendors, the places that are accepting cards won't have to make those decisions. They could just accept any payment?
I'll go first on that. I think no matter what, you have two sides to a payment, right? And I'll say the word card. In the card world, you have the issuer and the acquirer side of it. As an example of it not needing to pertain just to cards or any other form of money movement, among other things Visa's doing, I know we didn't talk about stablecoin today. It's the other thing everybody feels obligated to be talking about. Visa has cleared 7 different stablecoins end to end with issuer, acquirer, settlement, fraud protection, everything. They're all over it, right? But at the end of the day, you have two sides to a transaction, right? And then all of the parties that are involved in that transaction between the issuer and acquirer really do have an influence on why I saw one of the comments from Tyler here, why Costco will only take Visa, right? They used to only take American Express. They feel that they have such a captive buyer, right, which they do, that they're going to drive the best bargain on fees that they can from one provider and drive it with bulk. But you have Walmart, who's an equally large provider, and they'll take anything. So a lot of it really depends on the issuer and the acquirer in terms of who all of those parties are going to be in between. I think I'll speak for myself as a human. Most humans want choice, but they want a limited number of choices that they like as a backup plan to their primary choice. They don't want to have 50 choices to pay. Some people love paying with Venmo. Some people love Zelle. A lot of people don't, right? At the end of the day, I think as humans, you're going to have 3 or 4 options that you like, and you're going to want them to work. And then the job for those of us who are processors or working in credit unions is to know which ones the membership wants and be really good at making it flexible, frictionless, fraud-free, right? So yeah, there's a lot of disintermediation, and you're going to have to pick a basket of that disintermediated ecosystem and make the experience amazing with it.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Very, very well said. I would just add that, if we're not offering that capability, whatever that may be, then that is a risk for someone else to own that interaction. Then they're going to get the engagement, they'll get the data, they're going to have the influence over the relationship. So it's true. We have to be strategic about what we offer. We can't offer everything for everyone, but that's one of the strategic risks of just not investing and looking forward.
And I think that's a great point too of knowing your members, right? Having the FaceTime and really getting to know the members and what they're wanting, what their expectations are. The more time we can get to know them, the better we can be at choosing those options, because like you said, we can't offer everything to everyone. I think that's a really good insight you have there.
I do have another question. I told you I could do this all day long. So so on the data side, and then with AI and so that is one place I do like to sit, is my nerd heart loves to play with it, find correlations or pretend like I do. But are there other data points or trends that you're seeing that maybe people are not immediately correlating with what their payments trends might be? So this is going to kind of stretch your brain a little bit if you haven't quite seen it, but it's one of the key things that I am seeing is data is finally really starting to get truly analyzed. I mean, like picked apart and kind of pulled together, that you're like, wow, I didn't realize that if I saw this happening over here, X was going to happen. And we have this whole trend behind us. And now we see it because we're able to really kind of pull that data together. So I'm curious if there's something out there that you see, and maybe that's more so for Char, where you see something happening in the community and you're like, well, this is going to happen, or we're going to need to, prepare for this, or we're going to have a great month in our fees coming in because of this.
Well,
And not Christmas shopping. That doesn't count.
right. Well, the shopping season for Christmas has greatly stretched over the year, as I think we know. Before it was, as soon as that Thanksgiving time hits, it's on, right? But we know that that's really stretched. I mean, I think looking at larger spend trends, especially within your region, we're in the Pacific Northwest, so we really look at, what's happening in our region. Visa puts out really robust reporting on like spending index, and so we want to make sure that we're looking at what's happening with our members and that data set, but then we also need to compare it to what's happening kind of on that macro level and within our region, and then globally, right? I mean, and we also look at different states within our region. There can be different trends happening in California. And we know that, Oregon tends to be a fast follow in a lot of different ways. So, so you have to kind of look at several data points and then see where those convergence is happening. As far as spend and consumer spending trends, it's not as simple as it was anymore. The holiday spend is a really great example. You think of the big ones. You think of summer vacations, back to school, holiday. It's not as simple as that anymore. So I think looking at kind of both the macro and the micro level on that is really important. And then you just kind of look at your data set and see, okay, where is there variance, or where are we aligning? And then that helps you plan better, for the future, different campaigns, what have you.
Yeah. Right. How about you, Steve?
I think
that people are shouting
to see the bleeding edge in action, right? You can look at the whole Amazon ecosystem where if you're watching Amazon, if you're streaming Amazon Prime and you watch a show that has a commercial, it'll just give you a little button to push on your TV to purchase. And if you have an Amazon Prime account, right, boom, 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 it'll just do it all for you. If you have Alexa pods, which are great as an intercom system in your house, they're also great at collecting data and then offering you subscriptions to buy soap and laundry detergent and all these other things. So Amazon is, I think, the most advanced in operationalizing the use of data and AI and trying to instill it into your behavior to just trust them that they know what you want to buy and they can make buying very easy, and then they can make it very cheap, and then the little blue gray truck comes out and just brings it to you, and amazing, right? I think they're evolving faster than most because they have such a dominant foothold on the retail space, right? I think we're all going to see that in other aspects of how we consume things and how those companies that produce the things that we consume want to get in on that game and model. I think Amazon is perhaps the model, but as I like to say, it's a fine line between intuitive and creepy, right? I mean, some of those things, it's like I really didn't want anyone to know that I might be considering buying something like that. So I think we're all in that world now where a lot of times it's going to be really good and save us time and be a service to us, but every once in a while it might be a little too much. I think we're in that phase right now.
And sometimes that truck shows up before you're done binge watching what you were watching on Prime.
Pretty amazing
right?
what they're able to operationalize end to end for sure.
Yeah. I have a question from Tyler here in the chat. It says, how can a small credit union maximize the technology to stay relevant in the payments space with the ability to spend for all the options, with the limited ability to spend for all the options, excuse me?
Yeah, it's a very real question. I would say my first answer is partner. It is most of the time more costly to do something yourself than partnering with a QSO such as MAP, or look at other, QSO models where that it can really add a higher value at a lower cost. And you get the added benefit of the ecosystem of thought leaders, which sometimes just that strategic conversations can help find the nuggets where you can say, okay, here's how I'll prioritize. For an example, digital wallet might be the nugget that you want to focus in on, but it's because and the capability to do that with maybe some reduced cost on some marketing campaigns. So I mean, that's just one example, but I think a huge benefit, and we just really want to leverage the QSO model, partake in the QSO model. It's such a win-win for the credit unions and the members, to really help us stay competitive and compete with much bigger players in the market.
I would just add on to everything that Char said, that I think the toughest part operating a QSO is not having the right technology and having the right relationships with all of you that are in the credit union business. It's coordinating your roadmaps and your timing so that we can collectively bargain the pricing for you on these technologies. We spend the most time, right, with respect to Tyler, I saw your comments and thank you around the partnership that we're going to have with another QSO to deliver all of these real-time payments capabilities. As a business, if you can commit to a certain amount of volume in a certain amount of time, you're willing to give a better price. And for us, we have only so much risk we can wear that we can commit to that volume. If we had the ability to really align roadmaps, we process 55 credit unions. If we had the ability to really align roadmaps and go collectively RFP and bargain on a price where we have the right provider, we have the right technology, and if we can get 3, 5, 10 credit unions to commit on a timeline, we can drive the price down for all of you. And that's another thing that is a stated objective for us as a QSO, is we want to drive the price down as much as we can, but we need the volume. And that's where with smaller credit unions, we love working with the smaller credit unions, but that's our biggest challenge, is just coordinating the timing of adoption so that we can go collectively bargain and get a better price point to be able to adopt the technology.
Yeah. I was trying to come up with ideas on how to, coordinate that, but I guess that's the $1 million question, right? Something we've been working on with our shared services model, getting these smaller credit unions coordinated together and really communicating with one another and aligning those needs, right? And, always keeping member service first. So
absolutely.
Cool. Anything else?
I
think we
won't ask
covered
any
it.
more crazy one. Yeah, I'll leave it at
One thing I will add on the AI shopping side thing that popped in my mind is Shopify recently, a huge online vendor, I guess you'd say, they integrated ChatGPT into their product. So they integrated that. So now anybody with a Shopify store can have their products listed on ChatGPT as suggestions when people are using that. So it's coming from both ends, right? The payments and the consumer and the all that stuff. So that's not coming, it's here. So we gotta deal with that, as you said, Steve. Just something that popped in my mind when you said that. But I really appreciate you guys joining us and sharing all those wonderful insights and your knowledge with us and our guests today. Thank you to all the guests for joining us. Like I said, 10 a.m. on Tuesday, we will be back here with another exciting topic and getting down to the friction point. So thank you all, and I will see you on the next one.